Hello everyone, it's Elizabeth aka Poetry in Motion, and welcome back to the Midweek Roundup, where each week I talk about the latest installment of the Clan Jarin series, read your comments, and answer your questions. So, this week's chapter was a lot more emotionally involved. I decided to focus on OMarra this chapter because we really haven't gotten a whole lot of what OMarra is feeling about this whole thing. And frankly, she hasn't had much time to think about it either, because, she has 2 kids to take care of, she's settling her family into a new environment, and with OMarra, the family comes first. But in this chapter, it just kind of hits her like a freight train, you know? She can no longer hide from it, and that was something that I found really rewarding to explore. So, yeah, more it's a lot more it's a lot deeper than last week's chapter, because last week's chapter was a lot of exposition stuff, introducing my originals, and I love them, but last week's chapter did feel a little exposition-y. But exposition is necessary to further the story, but it was so much of a relief to write this chapter and finally get back into, some meat on things. So, without further ado, how about we get into your comments? Let's see. Oh, special thanks is in order for user Nikki Bock, who gave this chapter a bit of a beta read before I posted it. I love her, and I thank her so much for reading my work with a critical eye and going, okay, last week's chapter I didn't really engage with as much, but this chapter was really good. I really appreciated that. Oh, and go read her work. I'm going to link it in the description. She just posted the most adorable little one-shot about Mando and Baby Yoda, and it's so sweet, and I love it so much. Oh, dear. Sorry, some storms just rolled in a little bit south of Detroit, so, that rain. Alright, let's get into it. Nikki Bogwater comments, family drama. Love that even when Din and OMarra border on arguing, it's still very soft and loving. All the interactions in this chapter felt so natural, it was like being in the room watching everything happen. Well, thank you. And I decided to keep Din and OMarra's communication very open because, they're both adults. They're not like teenagers and they're not young adults that, miscommunication and not speaking honestly with each other is a real problem in those age groups. But, they're both, older adults. They're both parents. So they're just like, you know what? Screw the whole awkward communication thing. I'm going to talk to you like an adult. So, I'm glad that came across. Also, I forgot to say this earlier, but that scene with the rotten melon exploding was so well written it made me feel physically sick. Like I could actually feel and smell everything OMarra was. Just bundles upon bundles of love for this chapter, and also a great deal of fear because I know everything will inevitably go horribly wrong and Din is absolutely going to have to eat his words. Yeah, Din doesn't really know it yet, and he didn't really mean to, but yeah, in taking this job, he beefed it. He beefed it pretty hard. He doesn't know exactly how, but he has. And he didn't exactly mean to, you know what I mean? He's like, okay, he was kind of blinded by, oh my gosh, there's so much I can do for my family with this, you know what I mean? So, yeah, he meant well, but he's definitely screwed up a little. But, if every character made the perfect choice, what kind of book would this be, right? And I'm really grateful about that you liked the scene with the rotten melon. I worked really hard on that, and it was actually inspired from real life because we had a melon on the table that didn't get cut up, and eventually it got, soft and stuff. So then I was like, oh, great, this I'm definitely going to incorporate into something, because it's just like, there's such a specific, oh man, it is really rocking out there. There's just something really specific about, about a fruit that is rotting. There's a very specific smell, there's a very specific feel, and I felt like that would make a really nice sort of analogy or enhancer to everything that OMarra's feeling. So I'm glad that that came across really well. And thank you, as always, for your love and support, Nikki. I love you. Sheena is a punk rocker. Screams, ah! Just screams, ah! With like, how many H's is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm gonna go ahead and estimate and say like a dozen H's on that. Love it. So much angst, but that last scene was so sweet. Yeah, I didn't really want to leave the chapter on something that wasn't, really sweet, and I didn't really want to leave it on an angsty cliffhanger. I adore Din using pet names for OMarra and being so affectionate with her, and how comfortable he is now just picking Winta up and hugging her and just Bojit Judo Tuori Ugajig. Yeah, me too. I don't know what language that is, but me too. What can I say? I mean, behind closed doors, Din's kind of a cuddler, you know? Like, if he's got his Mando persona on, of course he's not going to be, super forthcoming with physical affection. But the minute he's out of Mando and into Din, he's like, alright, I'm going to now attach to you. I will have a hand on you. I will, cuddle you. He's learned a lot in the past few months, and I'm very proud of him. All right, Kit 1. Din comforting OMarra was just perfect. I loved the part about the oil and other things that they are used for. Yeah, that's something that OMarra doesn't really acknowledge a lot. She doesn't really acknowledge, oh crap, he's a bounty hunter. There are some bad things that he has done with his hands, But, I mean, she knows it, she acknowledges it, but she tends to kind of not think about it because she is attached to Din in such a different way from any other connection Din has ever had. So she doesn't really want to think about it. It's not that she's denying it, it's that she doesn't want to focus on it when Din is there and when Din is present in the moment. OMarra is just so stressed about everything. Yes, she is. Kit continues, I know she's stressed about Winta training and becoming a Mandalorian, but I wonder if she thought that maybe Winta would actually want to. It would be something that Winta felt she would be able to control, maybe safer too. A great chapter. I love this series. Thank you, Kit 1. I am so happy that you love this series, and I'm glad that you've stuck around for this long. I love reading your comments. So, that's not even really on OMarra's radar at this point, whether Winta wants to or not, because she's kind of in that phase with parents, like, you have parents, you probably know, where they're like, of course my child doesn't want to do this thing I don't want them to do. I mean, that's ridiculous. Why would they want to do something I don't want them to do? So it's not even crossing her mind if Winta wants to train, if Winta wants to become a Mando. It's not even something she's considering. And you can bet that that is going to come up, That's definitely going to be a plot point, like a sticking point between OMarra and Winta. That's going to be something that's very important later on. Maybe in the next, let me think. It's either chapter after next or 2 chapters after this upcoming one. But yeah, that's definitely going to become very important. And to be fair to OMarra, Winta's kind of having a hard time right now. She passes out on the forge floor. She kind of grabs her hand really tight. She's generally just being an anxious little bean. So, to be fair to OMarra, she wouldn't really expect it out of Winta, but that's something that we're going to explore a little bit later, and I can't tell you anymore because spoilers, so hope you stick around. Alright, RPCV Liz says, poor OMarra. That does seem to kind of be the theme of all of these comments. Poor OMarra. I feel bad for all the pressure she's under, and I get the feeling things won't go as smoothly as she'd like. I hope she and Din have a long overdue conversation once the job is over. So, when I said that Din and OMarra's communication is open, I never said it was going to be perfect, because nobody's ever going to have a perfect communication record. It's just not possible, you know? But I do believe that they are going to have a conversation after this whole thing is over. Uh, it may not be the smoothest conversation, and it may not be the most calm conversation. It may not be the calmest conversation, but it'll happen. And yeah, it'll happen a little bit later though. That whole thing unwinds a few chapters down the road. So stick around for that. All right, Calico 321. Hi Calico. Oh man, this was so visceral, really pulling us into the turmoil inside OMarra. I really love the idea of buying the rotten melon for its seeds. Yeah, that, just before I continue with the rest of your comment, that was also something that really to me was symbolic of a lot of what OMarra is. She looks at something that's kind of rough and kind of unappealing in a way, something that's tough and not very easy to work with. She looks at it and goes, I can make something out of this. She's resourceful, but she also sees potential in everything that is around her and everything in her world. And so I kind of used the melon a little bit in that kind of microcosm kind of way. Plus, it added such a layer to her near breakdown. Her reservations about this job are on point. But I agree with that. That's why I put it in there, obviously. But it was really also important for me to make sure that both sides seem, as much as I hate, on both sides kind of rhetoric, in this case, OMarra's right. I feel like I can go ahead and say that OMarra's right. This job is not going to be great for the whole being safe thing. You guys probably guessed that from reading the summary. I mean, come on. But I wanted to make Din wanting to take this job and Din's reasoning about taking the job seem realistic. And yeah, I could see why Din could think that way, I wanted both sides to feel logical, and I wanted you guys to see where both sides were coming from on this whole thing. I'm glad it didn't devolve into a full-blown fight. Din handled himself like a champ. Love, love, love how he first greeted her with the hug from behind. Yeah, Din's gotten a lot better at physical communication. He's gotten a whole lot better at it. And I love having little moments where I can show that, and show just how much Din has progressed as a person through his relationship with OMarra and through his, de facto adoption of Winta. I mean, technically he hasn't adopted her yet, but she's her daughter. She's his daughter. I mean, come on. Also, her thoughts about her baby having to wear a helmet. Brilliant chapter. I had to do the chef's kiss. I love it. Also, her thoughts about her baby having to wear a helmet. I basically just went stream of consciousness on that, man. I basically kind of tried to put myself in OMarra's shoes. What would her reservations be about Winta hiding her face? I mean, it seems kind of small a little bit, oh, you'll still see her face when she comes home and takes the helmet off and everything, but it seemed really big in that moment, it seems huge, and it is huge for OMarra. It's such a huge change, and it's nothing she would have expected for her daughter, so I just kind of sat down and went stream of consciousness. You'll notice that whole paragraph where OMarra's thinking about, I've seen her face grow through all of the stages of her life, you'll notice that whole paragraph is one big long sentence. And that's basically how I do, stream of consciousness writing, is I just go. You know what I mean? I just write, and I don't really care if it's all one sentence. So that was pretty much how I put that together. But Calico, I'm so glad that you liked the chapter. I really appreciate you. You've been around for a long time, so I really appreciate you just keeping on showing up. I love it. And then Suffocatingly Positive, finally, with a very simple, I loved this, thanks for the amazing update. No, thank you, Suffocatingly Positive, for coming and sticking around and reading my stuff. It gives me life, you know? Even just the simple, I loved this comments, it makes my heart happy. Uh, well, that's it for the comments, but I have posted a couple things on Tumblr that I think you guys might find interesting. The first is a post about how I've kind of been subconsciously basing OMarra on Elizabeth Schuyler from Hamilton. So, I'm just gonna link both of these posts down in the description. And then the other is a response to Nikki Bogwater's Tumblr question of, how do you keep Din in character? And basically the Cliff Notes version is, if I can't imagine Pedro Pascal saying a line, and if I can't imagine either Brendan or Lateef Crowder or Pedro in the best card doing the action, it's out. But there's a lot more to it, and it's a lot more interesting, so that post is in the description as well. All right, I think that is good for today. As always, my Ask Box is open. My DMs are open on all my social media, so go ahead and drop your questions in there. Drop your comments. Just feel free to chat me up. And as always, I will see you on Saturday for the next update, and I'll see you next week for the next weekend. But I just almost said weekend update. Oh my god. I wish I was as funny as SNL. But I will see you next week for the next midweek roundup. And I'll see you on Saturday for the next chapter of Sanctuary.